Today I wanted to start this process of studying this a little bit, and I am going to use Psalm 139 as an example, as a basis for this little study that we are doing right now. Psalm 139 was written by David. When you think about David, what comes to your mind first? David and Goliath, right? There's the first. When the name David comes, somebody mentions David, that's the first thing that people think about, David and Goliath. When David faced Goliath, he did so without any fear or anxiety. And I just want to explain this setting a little bit. Goliath was an enemy soldier, and he was the champion of the Philistines. He was by some estimates 8 feet tall, and he was built like a tank, and not only that, he was trained from his childhood to be a soldier and to kill people and to just do chaos on the battlefield. So one time the Philistines came against Israelites, and they were going to go to war. But then this guy shows up, this Goliath guy shows up, and he goes out into the field, and he faces all of the Israelites. He faces their king, all of their soldiers, all of their top people. And he says, which one of you is going to come out and fight me? Which one of you? Come on, one of you. If one of you comes out and fights me, we're going to go back. You defeat me, we're going to go back, you rule. But if I kill you, then you're going to be all our servants. This was the challenge. So now imagine the anxiety that just went through that whole camp. Because all of those people on the Israelite side, they were scared. The Bible tells us that King Saul, when God allowed him to become king, that physically he was taller than everybody else by head and shoulders taller than everybody else. So he was a huge man too. Why, he didn't go out there to fight Goliath. He was scared too. So anxiety comes into our life, and it's a fear of unknown. It's a fear that we're not going to be successful. It's a fear that maybe, at work we are going to underperform. And they had this underperformance anxiety. They were all wondering, if I go out, I'm going to get killed. So nobody went out. Nobody decided to accept that challenge. So you have this kid, 17-year-old, and the Bible doesn't say anything about his physical prowess. It doesn't, say that he was big and strong and tall and just muscular. It doesn't say anything. It just says that he was youthful, 17-year-old. So apparently he was an average person, 17 years old. And he goes out there. And you know the story. I don't tell you the story. He approaches this problem without an ounce of anxiety. He just doesn't have it. He's like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to kill this guy. It's not a problem. Why don't you guys just sit back and relax, because I got this, So this is David then. And then this is David now in Psalm 139. Years have gone by. And sometimes we get up and we go, and we are young, and we are not afraid of the future. We are not afraid of anything, but then life catches up with us. And he did with David. David had done some things that were not really good. He had committed murder. He was not necessarily a nice person if you look at the Bible. David, when I look at the Bible and the Bible talks about him very favorably, but he was not a nice person. One thing that I still cannot understand about David and get through my head is when he's dying. I don't know if you remember that story. He's dying. He's lying on his bed. His son Solomon comes. He's going to be the next king. And David says to Solomon, now imagine this. You're dying. Tomorrow you're not going to be around. And David says to Solomon, there is this guy. And this guy some years ago, he offended me. He cussed at me. And I want to tell you something. I want you to make sure that guy doesn't die peacefully. I want his blood spilled. So on his deathbed, he's not forgiving this man. You see, he still has revenge in his heart. So I'm looking at David and I'm saying, David is a human being like you and I. You know, he had his faults. He had his mistakes. He had his problems. At one point in his life, when he was 17 years old, he came out and he had this total faith in God, unshakable, and he defeated a man that nobody else could defeat because he had no fear, he had no anxiety. He just went forward. But then life came in and things happened in his life, and he sinned against God, and he created enemies. And by the time he writes these Psalms, his own kids want to kill him. His own countrymen don't want him to be the king anymore. Tribes want to secede from the kingdom and go their own way. His grip on the power is not what it used to be. He is not strong anymore. You see, his life is not perfect anymore. He doesn't have a lot of future ahead of him, and he's a different person at this point. And I want to read this so that we understand the person that he is. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God, he says. How vast is the sum of them. If I would count them, they are more than the sand. I awake and I'm still with you. So he is praising God. He loves God. He is expressing his devotion to God. But look at what he says next. Oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God. He is wishing that God would kill people. He is wishing that God would kill wicked people. O men of blood, depart from me. They speak against you with malicious intent. Your enemies take your name in vain. And then look at what he says. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with complete hatred. I count them my enemies. So let's stop there for a second. David is a man after God's own heart, right? He loves God. But now he is pressed from the left side and from the right side. Life is not easy. He's got enemies. He's got problems. He sees pressure. He sees people who want his head on the platter. He sees situations where he's not going to come out like he did with Goliath, you see. And he said, I hate these people. I hate these people. I can't stand them. God, I wish you killed them. I wish you destroyed them. His anxiety is just running through the roof. You see, can you imagine? You can feel it in his voice. You can feel it in what he's writing. I mean, he's putting these words on paper, and he's expressing his deep hate for the people who are after him. And to me, this is similar a little bit to what we are going through today in the modern world. We look at people and we see people that deserve to be hated. You know, politically, people look at the other side and they see people that deserve to be hated. We look at the news and constantly we are exposed to negative stuff. I read a story yesterday, I think, online. A man, a policeman in New York, and his wife abused their kids, two little kids, 7 years old. Wouldn't feed them, wouldn't clothe them, starved them, kept them in the garage when the weather outside was 20-degree temperature. Neighbors called, ex-wife called, police came out, the social services came out. They did nothing. They did nothing. They just let it alone. You see, finally, the kid freezes to death in the garage. Just dies, you know. And police gets involved. They take the body. They remove the other kids from the house. The body of the little boy is in the hospital, and the hospital personnel comes to the father and says, is there anything we can do for you in this time of grief? And he says, his response was, I I've been through a lot more stressful stuff than this in my life. So I'm reading this, and I'm thinking, somebody, please, give me a gun. Yeah, just shoot the guy dead, you know. Or hang him right now, hang him. Why even have a trial? You know, you become so upset and so angry with somebody like that. And then you read this, what he says here, do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? I loathe them. I hate them with complete hatred. Strike them down. Kill them. I cannot stand them. And there is just, in today's world, if you go out there and if you get involved, if you look online, if you look at the news, if you look at whatever, there is an unending source of negative and ugly and murderous and just disgusting stuff. Why? Because that's what sells. You see, you're not going to open a news website and find out the story about the Arvada Seventh-day Adventist Church going to a poor side of neighborhood, poor side of town, and painting somebody's house. That's not going to be in the news. What's going to be in the news? Somebody murdered somebody killed their wife, this woman, she drowned her kids, you know, these people are selling drugs on the school property, prostitution, murders, wars, you know, nuclear, I mean, you just name it. It's just full of it. That's what this world is all. Why? Because that sells. That's what people want to hear. Nobody wants to read about some guy doing something nice to somebody. So now that's what sells, and we are inundated with this stuff, and we get to the point where we can just be just like David, just hate. Hate my boss, you know. I hate my neighbor. I hate those Christians that just talk one way and do things the other way. I hate those communists. I hate those Muslims. I hate those, you know, whoever. I hate those immigrants. I hate those filthy, dirty, and you can just work yourself into frenzy where you hate everybody, you see, and you are having this anxiety, and you are having this stress, and you are having this, and then David did something that we need to do. He catches himself, right? He's like, okay, I hate these people, God, kill them. And then he says, search me, O God, and know my heart. He pivots. He changes the focus. He changes the direction. Instead of looking at all of those people who are killing their little kids, you see, and all of those people who are throwing poison gas on a little village of people that didn't do nothing to them, he changes the focus from all of that ugliness and all of that hate and all of that murder, and he says, okay, Lord, let's change the focus and let's look at my heart. Let's look at what's in my heart. And he says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me. If you look at the NIV version, it says, test me and know my anxious thoughts. So now he says, Lord, I can't go on like this. I got all the reasons to hate everybody and to be anxious and to be stressed out and to be afraid, but I need you to test my heart. I need you to show me what my anxious thoughts are. I need you to expose to me what's in me, inside of my life. And then he says the last sentence is, and lead me in the way everlasting. So he realizes that anxiety that we experience in this world, if it is not met with the power of God, it's going to destroy us. And he realizes that you can hate all you want to, and there is no end to it. There is literally no end to it. You can just go on and on and on forever, and you will always find something to hate, and something to be angry about, and something to be anxious about. Always. So, When it comes to my work, my policy always was, and I wasn't always a pastor. I was a pastor for the last 30 years, but I used to do other jobs. I used to drive a school bus. I used to drive a limo. I used to work in a restaurant when I was a kid. I used to work for an architectural company. My policy always was, and still today, to this day, is I'm going to do my best, whoever I work for. But you know what? If they don't respect me, I'm gone. I'm gone. I don't care. So that took away my anxiety, because I'm thinking, even here at the church, I'll do my best. If I have to work 2 shifts, I'll work 2 shifts. If I have to clean the toilets because nobody else is around, fine. I'm going to do that. But if my bosses disrespect me, you know what? I'm gone. So that takes away, that's how I deal with work issues. You see, but how do you deal with somebody who is hurting little kids? How do you deal with somebody who is hurting you? How do you deal with somebody who is affecting you on a much more deeper and personal level? You need God. You need God to test my thoughts, my anxious thoughts, and to lead me in the way everlasting. In other words, I need to go to God and I need to say, Lord, help me. How do I deal with this? Show me. Give me an insight. Give me an inspiration. Were you going to say something? Be careful what you ask for. Amen. Very good point. Why are we so anxious? The first point, I already talked about it, is is intake. What comes in? What comes into our brain, you see? With the Philippians 4:8, I mentioned this before. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about those things. Right? But the problem is that we don't think about those things. The problem is, as soon as you open your phone or your computer or your iPad, you see there is all this other stuff that comes into our life. All the ugliness, all the stuff that's going to make you anxious and angry. They're going to make you boil up with rage. Unlimited sources of violence and anger and all of that stuff is out there. So what are you putting into your mind? What are you exposing yourself to? If you're sitting in front of that tube and just watching, a news channel all day long, or listening to the talk radio, or, just getting so obsessed with something, that's going to cause anxiety. You need to back off. You need to turn it off. You need to shut it off. Every one of these gadgets you see that we have, phones and computers, they all have this one feature, this one little app on them. It's called the turn on and off button, Yeah, it does. Some of you don't even know how to turn it off because it's never been off. It has never been off since the day you picked it up from the store. You see why? We are even scared to turn our phone off. Because if we turn it off, we might miss something. We keep it on all the time. And now they got watches, I got one of these watches that, if I go on a bike ride and the phone rings, this thing is going to ring. And the person is going to talk to me and say, hey, Gordon, I need you there and this and that. I mean, we are just so connected to this world of craziness. It's unbelievable. And maybe the time is to start disconnecting a little bit. So intake, what goes into your mind? Another point is imbalance. Imbalance. But seek first the kingdom of God and the righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. There is no balance anymore. If a person is into politics, they are into politics 110%. If they're into sports, they're into sports 110%. If they're into, world events, if they're into coronavirus, it's just, they can't stop themselves. there is no balance. If you're sitting on a couch all day long eating cookies and never moving, never exercising, guess what? You know. And if you're exercising all the time, constantly, and never getting any rest, well, guess what? You're going to hurt yourself too. You see, there needs to be a balance in life. There is one text that you're going to see in the Bible over and over and over again. You see, unequal weights are an abomination to the Lord, and false scales are not good. So you're going to see this in the Bible all the time, many times. God hates dishonesty. God hates when somebody does not have the integrity. When somebody is selling something to you, 2 pounds of bananas, and they are really giving you 1.5 pounds because they have manipulated the scales, God hates that. And I think the same principle applies to us. When we are out of balance, where one thing, the things of this world have overtaken our lives and we are not giving any weight to the things of God, He hates that as well. Sarai, show those pictures. This is from this morning, the pictures that I just found on Yahoo News this morning. I just put 4 of them real quick on the screen. The deadly synthetic opioid, boom. That's one. Look at the next one. Actor, comedian. I don't know who this guy is, but these are the news. This is in the news. You see, this is what sells. What's the next one? Coronavirus. What's the next one? I'm just showing the 4. I'm the sheriff. Who are you? Sheriff stops fake cop car in its tracks. You see, so these are the stories that are. That's funny. That's a funny one. We need a little, right? We need a little humor every once in a while. But this is all negative. This is all negative. It's funny, but this guy was pretending that he was a cop. What was he going to do? Was he going to rape somebody by pretending to be a cop? Was he going to rob somebody? But this is just a small sample of what's out there. And this is what's causing this imbalance in our lives. That's why we need to be able to say no. That's why we need to be able to say, okay, I'm going to stop this thing. I'm going to get something else into my life. Like the Bible says, things that are good, things that are right, things that are just. You know what the problem is with all of this? When you look at these stories that are negative, when you look at the world around us, you know why it makes us anxious and angry? It's because it takes away our power. Because you look at that, I look at that story of that cop who killed his little son by freezing him to death. And I read that story and I become angry, and then I realize that I'm powerless to do anything about it. And then I read the story about the coronavirus, and it's spreading like crazy through China, and it's on these shores already. And you guys, if you go out there and look at some of these stories, I saw a story yesterday on the news where neighbors come to the neighbor's house in China, and they are taking 2x4s and boarding up their doors so that the neighbors can't come out of the house anymore because everybody is afraid that they are sick. So they're saying that they're literally locking people inside of their homes and letting them starve to death because everybody is scared that they're going to die. I read that, I'm helpless. I read about Turkey invading Syria, I'm helpless. I read about the elections and all the chaos that's going on in American politics, I'm helpless. Nothing I can do about any of that stuff. You see, I read about poverty, I'm helpless. You see how this is possible for all of this stuff to create the imbalance in your life? Where all of a sudden you become so anxious and so full of anxiety. The scales, remember the scales? And you're down here on the scale and you're just helpless. And you become anxious and tired. You know what the way to deal with it is? Is to put some of the stuff, some of the things of God on the other side of the scale. To take power back. How do you do that? You get involved in ministry. You get involved in doing something for somebody else. You know, when you come here to church and you say, Pastor Milos, can you go get me a box of food? I want to take it to my neighbor. They are struggling. And you go with Milos to the food bank and you get the box. And you go back to your neighborhood and you go knock on their door and you see the smile on their face. You're taking your power back. You see, you're realizing at that point, you know what? I can do something about this stuff. Maybe I can't do anything about Syria and Turkey, but I can make my neighbor's life a little bit better. If you go down the street beat and feed a few homeless people, give somebody a haircut, give somebody a new pair of socks, if you smile at somebody, if you visit a single mother who is struggling, if you visit what if that, that man, that policeman and his wife, what if they had Christian friends who went over there every once in a while and said, let me pray for you. What can we do for you? Maybe the Holy Spirit could have reached them in time. But nobody did. Nobody did. The only way to create balance between what's going on in this world is to take some power back. And you do that by doing the work of God. You do that by getting involved. You do that by doing something hands-on where you can actually say, you know what? I can make the difference. I can make the difference. And this is what's, honestly, this is what's kept me afloat as a pastor for all of these years. Because everything that I told you is true. You can have pressures from above to perform, and you can have, somebody requesting and demanding this and that, and all of that stuff just piles up, and you say, I'm not going to be able to do all of that stuff, right? But then somebody comes along and says, Pastor Gordon, if you guys didn't help me when I really needed help, I would be dead by now. And then this act brings back the balance in my life. Because over here, I can't perform. There is a lot of things I'm not going to be able to do. But over here, I have a testimony. You see, I have a person who is confirming that what I'm doing is good, and it helped them. And that carries me through the hard times and through the tough times. So instead of focusing on all of the things that we cannot do much about, let's do something about things that we can do something about. And we can all do something, a little something all the time. If you want to take your power back, think about a little thing that you can do for your neighbor, for your cousin, for your friend, for your relative. Call somebody you haven't called in years. Say, hello, how you doing? This is so-and-so. They'll be happy to hear from you. Then you're taking your power back. One other reason why we have so much anxiety is indecision. It's hard for people to decide on one thing or another. You see, and they sit in limbo. There is a story in the Bible in 1 Kings about Elijah. And Elijah came near to all the people and said, how long will you go limping between two different opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people did not answer him a word. They were stuck. They didn't know which way to go. Sometimes we can't make a decision. We can't make a decision to do the things that God wants us to do. We can't make a decision to follow God all the way, to abide by his principles, to serve him. We just can't. We are just paralyzed with the things of this world. Worries of this world, Jesus says, will choke the life out of you. So you can't make a decision. Look at this text, James 1:6-8. But let him ask in faith with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. If you are doubting, if you cannot make a decision, then it says he is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. You can't make a decision to follow God. God can't do nothing for you. You can make a decision to serve God, do something for him, something good. It doesn't have to be in the church. You don't have to be an Adventist or even a Christian. But you can do some good stuff out there for somebody. Take some power back. Make a decision. I'm going to be a good man. I'm going to be a good woman. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to have honesty. I'm going to have integrity. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to do what's right all the time. If somebody disrespects me, see you later. You know, you take your power back. You do the things the right way. And then, if you don't have the doubts, if you make decisions, then it says here, you know, if you have doubts, then God can do nothing for you. But if you don't, if you're decided, if you're straight, if you're forward, then God is also going to come to your side. God doesn't like to work with people who can't make a decision on nothing. What was God going to do for King Saul and the Israelites in the state that they were in? In the state that they were in, of indecision and fear and anxiety, God was going to do for them absolutely nothing. Because all God could do when they were so scared and so full of anxiety was to sit back, fold his arms like this, and say, nothing I can do for these guys. You know, they're just, get moving and then I'll do something. You know, and then David comes along and he's made a decision. He's not thinking about this. He's not pondering. He's not evaluating. He's not analyzing. He's not thinking back and forth. He's just going forward. And that stone that he threw just had perfect aim and accuracy and strength. And God was behind him. God can do things with people who are decisive. God can do things with people who move. God can do things with people who have balance in their life. God can do things with people who understand that He is there. But you got to take a step too. God can do things with people who understand and realize that they are made in His image. And that's something that's really worth pondering. It's a whole other sermon. So these are the few simple things that we can do to deal with anxiousness. What is the intake? What's coming into my life? What's out of balance? And how indecisive I am. Also, I gave you a little article there on how to create a routine. And I'll tell you why I gave you that. Routine is something that limits the levels of anxiety that we have in our life. If you say to yourself, you know, on Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock, we're going to sit down and for an hour we're going to look at our budget every Sunday. You know what? Your financial problems are going to go away pretty soon. If you say to yourself at 6 o'clock at night, evening after work, I'm going to go to a rec center and I'm going to put in an hour. I don't care what happens, but that's what I'm going to do. You know what? Pretty soon, 2 months into it, your body, your life, your health starts changing. Creating a routine is a very important step in eliminating all kinds of anxieties in our life. Because now you're building in a mechanism that's going to deal with all kinds of problems in your life, and it becomes automatic. You see, so that's why I gave you that article. I think it's worth reading. The last thing I want to say, Jesus says in John 16:33, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, trouble. The world, everywhere you look, you're going to have nothing but trouble and tribulation. But take heart, I have overcome the world. So, let's continue studying this next week. With Jesus, you know, we can eliminate the anxiety in our life and just live an anxiety-free life. I hope you will study this some more. If you have any questions, email me, call me, text me, whatever, and we'll stay in touch on all of this stuff.